Hi there, I'm so glad you could join me today for Yarn Bite with Nora, where every project has a story, and I think you're really going to enjoy today's story. I am going to be giving my very first tutorial, and I have the permission of the designer who made my house slipper. It was designed by Tara Murray. You might also know her by her company, Mamachi. I'd like to tell you a little bit about the designer Tara Murray. She lives in Fairbanks, Alaska with her husband and her 4 adorable kids. She homeschools them, and what little time she has left over, she designs these gorgeous, beautiful crochet items. This is the very first pattern that I bought from Tara. I have made so many of these in different color combinations. They are so cushy, so much fun. Everybody loves them. Everybody loves them. I tell you what, once you make one, you can whip out a dozen. It's never too early to start on Christmas. I made this pair with the purple is I Love This Yarn, and the green is Red Heart. They're both acrylic, so you can wash and dry, and you don't have to worry about ruining them. And you know, house slippers, you end up by default dusting the floor, but why not? Why not do 2 things at one time? Now, I hope you're not disappointed, but I am not going to be giving you the pattern. I'm going to be guiding you through this project. I've learned a few things that are a little bit different from what you might be used to, and so the first thing you need to do is buy and download the Oma House Slipper by Tara Murray. And you can find her work at Etsy, Craftsy, and also Ravelry. And I'm going to list those addresses for you in the notes. And it's $5.50. It's worth it. The directions are simple to follow. Also the sizes, the range is amazing. 3 to 4. 5 to 6, 7 to 8, 9 to 10, 11 to 12. You're talking about children, a medium, and then a large, or a woman small to a little bit larger, and you got all the sizes covered. I also teach you how to do decreases. If you don't know how to do them, this will be great. If you've done it before, it's a good review, because that's what gives the shaping. That's what gives you this beautiful shape, the decreases. So we're going to learn how to make a single crochet 2 together, a half double crochet 2 together, and a double crochet 2 together. All right, hope you enjoy it. Are you ready to get started? I know I am. Before I begin the tutorial on the Oma House Slipper, I'd like to discuss the anatomy of the slipper and also point out some of the features. If you notice, on the underside, or the sole, I have chosen green. At the top, I have chosen purple. You could do it any color you want to, and you can have a blast, you can have a ball. I have made them in teal and brown. I have made them in hot pink with this green, and everybody calls them watermelon. Yellow, I've made them in yellow and purple. I haven't tried yet, but scrap yarn would be gorgeous. You could have so much fun, and once you've done one, you can whip through a dozen, so you're going to have some really, really nice Christmas presents. My co-workers love these. They love these. I've taken them to work to show people. They do request them, but just imagine you could slip these in your purse, take them to somebody's house. If your feet get cold at work, you can take off your high heels, slip these on. You're behind a desk. Nobody's going to know. How awesome is that? Another thing I'd like to point out is that there are only 8 rounds. 8 rounds to make this beautiful slipper. The sole, 3 rounds. A total of 3 rounds. Then you have rounds 4 through 8. Is your top. They're shaping at the toe, they're shaping at the heel. In this segment, I'll be showing you how to end a row and how to start a new row. Many new crocheters have the problem of which stitch do I go into, which stitch do I come out of, how do I start a new row. And the Oma house slipper, they do joins just a little bit different, so I'm going to show you the difference. And we'll start with what we're used to. You can tell I finished this row, and this is just a sample that I'm giving you an example. And let's look for their chain stitch. In that case, we only had a chain 1. So normally we would draw the yarn through our chain 1. In this case, might be chain 2, might be chain 3. We would perhaps do the top of the chain 1, the chain 2 stitch, or the top of the chain 3 stitch, and then we would draw it through our last stitch, and that's how we would join. And then we would go ahead, do a chain 1, 2, 3, whatever is required of us, and then on the next stitch, our first stitch, which is right here, we would work that. So this is what a lot of us are used to doing. We do it without even thinking. Well, the Oma house slipper is a little bit different. So let me show you. So we're going to, let me finish the row. Here's my last stitch. In this case, I'm working single crochet. Now, this is the last stitch, and then we have our chain 1, and that was on the same row that we're working, and here's the first stitch. Well, what we're doing, this was the first stitch of the row. This is the last stitch of the row, so we are going to join, actually we're going to join into the first stitch. We're going to ignore our slip stitch, and then I'm going to yarn over, going to draw through my first stitch, and then draw it through my last stitch. And here we have, it's closed. And then let's say our directions for your size call for chain 1. Then you would make your next stitch, your first stitch actually, would be in the very same stitch where you just joined. So it's going to be a super crowded stitch. So let me see, we'll say that it called for a single crochet. So we slip it in, we yarn over, we draw the yarn, yarn over, and we draw it through the 2. And there we go. And right here you can see, here's our chain 1. And then our next stitch will work just like we normally do. Not so hard. So we're going to join into our first stitch, and then we're also going to work our next row in that last stitch that we just worked. So let's say, all right, let's say our next row called for, oh well, we're going to close it the very same way. So we're going to ignore our chain 1. Here's the first stitch. We're going to work in there. We're going to pull it out. And let's say it calls for chain 2. So we're going to chain 2, chain 1, chain 2. And usually, you know, if you do a chain 2 or chain 3, that you're going to have a taller stitch is usually going to come next. And let's say our directions call for 2 half double crochets in the same stitch. And we're going to put it in the very same stitch that we just joined. We had our first stitch, our last stitch, we have our chain 2, and now we're also going to put 2 half double crochets in there. Wow, is it going to be crowded? Here we go. So we're increasing, aren't we? And we usually do this when we're fanning out. Here we go. It's going to go all the way through 3. Now we're going to yarn over for our second. We're going to go into the same stitch. Into the same stitch. And then we're going to yarn over and then pull through all 3. So look at that. In the same stitch, you have the chain 2, you have 2 half double crochets, and you also have the slip stitch. So it's a very crowded stitch, but you're doing it right. And then our next stitch, let's say call for 1 half double crochet, you would yarn over. Here's the 3 loops, 1, 2, 3, and then you would slip through, and then you just continue. So what if your directions call for 2 half double crochets? Well, let's say it asks for chain 2, which we've already done. It's same stitch right there. Here's the same stitch that we joined. Same stitch. We're going to do our first double crochet. Whoops. Our first double crochet. We'll go through 2, and then we'll go through the last 2. So now we have a chain 2, 2 double crochet, and now we're going to work another double crochet into the same stitch, into our first stitch. Here we go. All right, so that's how we would work that. Here we have a chain 2, we have 1 double crochet, 2 double crochet, and then our next stitch, let's say called for 1 double crochet, and the next stitch we would work it there. So that's a little guide on how we join our transitions, and this is the way we end and start a row with the Oma house slipper. Let's make sure we have the right tools. We have a K hook. I like to use a marker, and we're going to use 2 strands of worsted, or you can use 1 strand of bulky. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a slip knot. And you just do your favorite method. Alright, now I'm not going to tell you exactly what the directions are. This is a pattern that was designed by Tara Murray of Mama Chi, and we want to respect the designers, but I did want to help you in case there were any little snags that you might run into. So what you're going to do is look at your directions, and you're going to make the chain, the number of chains that it's called for. And I'd like to make nice loose chains because we're going to be working into them. So you go ahead and make those chains and come back. Welcome back. The next step, we are going to be working a multiple of single crochets, either in the second chain from the hook or the third chain from the hook or the fourth. So let's count. This is the first chain from the hook, this is the second chain from the hook, this is the third chain from the hook. So I am, for my size, am going to work 3 single crochets at 2 chains. So here we go. I insert at the top loop, and you do want to crochet both of your yarns. So that was 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet, and 3. And you follow your pattern. All right, very good. You'll be working a combination of single crochet, half double crochet, and double crochet. So check your pattern to see what it calls for. Now, if you prefer to have a narrow sole, like I did, you're going to disregard the double crochet, and you're just going to be working half double crochets. And I want you to stop 1 stitch before the end of the toe. I'm sorry, before the end of the last stitch on your chain. And come back. Thank you for coming back. And you'll see, look at that, isn't that nice? We have a semicircle. We're starting to take shape. Look at that. First row, we're already looking like a shoe. Now we're going to work on this side of our base chain, our base row, or our chain. So I'm going to turn it sideways so we can see it a little better. And we'll be working in here. Okay, this will be one stitch right there. That'll be a stitch. That'll be a stitch. And you can see we have the little X. So don't get confused and think you're going to work it there. So right there, and right there, right there. Okay? Where they make the little X, you're going to come in the middle. Alright? And basically what you're going to do is you're going to mirror whatever stitches were on this side, you'll be doing for the most part on the same side. The variation may be at the very end. You might do one less or one more. But if you did pretty much if you did a double crochet on this side, you'll be doing it on this side. Now we're ready to begin our next row, row 3. Look at your directions, see how many chains you need to make. Here we go. What I like to do is at some point, let's go ahead and put our marker. It doesn't matter if you put it at your first stitch, last stitch, or the slip stitch, just as long as you know where you put it. In this case, I'm going to put it in my chain 2. Here's 1, 2. Generally, when you work 2 chains, you know you're going to be working a taller stitch, which in my case, I'm going to be working in multiples of half double crochet. You might be working in double crochet, so check your directions. And I'm going to work, and remember this is the heel, so I'm going to work clusters of 2 half double crochets. And let me show you how you would work clusters. This is an example. So, and remember, we're going to begin working in the same stitch where we ended. So it gets kind of busy in here, but this is where we have our slip stitch and we also have our chain, and we're going to start. And but let me show you how you would work 2 half double crochets in the same stitch. Here we go. Just so you'll see, yarn over, pull it in, and go through all 3. Yarn over. Okay. Now, if the pattern calls for just 1 half double crochet, you do 1 half double crochet here. The next stitch, and then check your pattern, it may ask for 2 in the next stitch. So you would do 2 half double crochets. Here's 1, and then here's 2. And what we're doing is we're fanning out. We're making that beautiful heel. All right, so check your pattern. See what the stitch count is for your particular size, and we'll get back together in a few. I've worked my stitches up along this side. Now I'm going to be coming around. Let's see, this is the toe, right? And remember, we're going to do a combination of stitches so that it fans out. So you may have 2 in 1 stitch, 2 stitches in 1 stitch, and then you may alternate with a single stitch and a single stitch, and you may alternate with doubles. And this is going to give you that nice fan shape. So check your directions to see what kind of stitches, how many to go around, and then we're going to go down this side, and we're pretty much going to mirror what we did on this side. We're going to go down this side, and then we're going to slip stitch to our first stitch again. So I'll see you in a few minutes. The sole only has 3 rows, and you can see here we have a nice roomy toe. Over here we have a heel, and we've got the last stitch. I stayed back 1 stitch so I could show you. Here's the last stitch. This is the slip stitch that we made, and then this is our chain 2. This is the chain 2 that I made, and then this is the first stitch of this round, of round 3. The first stitch of my last row, I inserted, let me show you again. I insert my hook into this stitch, I pull the yarn through, and I close it up. And now I'm getting ready for the next round. We're going to change yarn colors at this point, so I'm going to snip it right here. For round 4, I'm going to use purple. Purple, such a pretty color, and it's really a nice combination with this. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo the slip stitch. I'm going to insert my hook back into my last half double crochet, slip it back into my first stitch of the row. I loop my new color, my contrasting color. This is going to be my top. Slip it through, slip it through. There you go. Now I'm ready to begin row 4. And just like I did for the heel, I'm working with two strands. And for this next row, or next round 4, we're going to work only in the back of our loops. And this is the front loop, and this is the back loop. This is the front, and this is the back. So we're only going to work in these back loops, and so the front loops are going to stay unworked, and they're going to leave like a really pretty little ledge. It's going to leave a little ridge. It's going to add a design element. I did want to point out at this point, we are going to be shaping the heel and the toe, but you're going to be working straight up. So you're not going to be fanning out at this point. Actually, as you start building up, you're going to start decreasing so that you get that snug shape. And I'll be showing you, don't worry, I'll be showing you how to do decreases with single crochet, half double crochet, and a double crochet. And let me go ahead and show you. I am going to chain once, but you check your directions to see how many times you're going to need to chain. Then in the same stitch that we slipped and the same stitch where I worked my chain, I'm going to work my first stitch, which happens to be a half double crochet. So this is one of those transitions, and now I'm going to go ahead and put my marker, my first stitch. It doesn't matter where you put your marker as long as you know where your marker is. Alright, and so my next stitch, you just work the rest of the stitches all the way around, then around the toe, and I'm going to work the last 3 stitches of this row so you can see up close how I work on the back loop. I'm going to do 3 single crochet, okay, As you can see, here's the front, here's the back loop. That's 2. Here's the front, here's the back loop. And this is my first stitch on this round. And we want to end by slipping the first stitch of the round. We insert our hook and we pull the yarn through our last stitch, and there we have our last round is closed, and we're ready to start our next round. You can see how we'll be working up. So this will be the inside, and of course we're going to be weaving this in, and these stitches are going to be working up, and you're going to have this lovely little ledge here, and it's going to define your sole. It's going to have a definition between the sole and the top of your shoe. All right, for the next round, for round 5, I'm going to chain 1, but you check your pattern. All right, see for your size what you need to do. Here's my chain 1. There, that's a little distracting. And then we're going to do a combination of half double crochets, single crochet, and this is where we're going to start decreasing. So I'm going to do my first stitch, remember, in the same stitch where I connected my last round, or where I joined my last round, which is right here, right there. This is my slip stitch. This is my chain 1. So, and this is the same stitch I'm going to work a half double crochet. You remember half double crochet? I'm going to yarn over, open up that little stitch, slip it in. I'm going to grab the yarn. Now I have 3 loops, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to yarn over, and I'm going to work all the way through both of them. I like to keep my work loose. Now here, when I'm ready to single crochet 2 together, I will demonstrate. So you all go ahead and do your first couple of stitches, and when you get to a decrease, I'll be ready to demonstrate it for you. Welcome back. At this point, I'm near the top of the toe, and it's a good place for me to show you how to do decreases, which are indicated by half double crochet 2 together and double crochet 2 together. And we're going to start with the half double crochet. So we are going to yarn over, insert it into the next stitch. We're going to pull the yarn through, and we have 3 loops, 1, 2, 3. Now we're going to yarn over, and here's the next stitch. We will insert it, and we'll pull the yarn through, and we're going to count our stitches. At this point, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 loops. We're going to yarn over, and we are going to pull the yarn all the way through the 5 stitches, and we have one great big fat half double crochet 2 together. All right, let's do that again. We're going to yarn over. Here's the next stitch. I'm going to insert, then I'm going to pull the yarn through, and let's count the loops. 1, 2, and 3. we're going to yarn over again to complete this decrease. Here's the next stitch. We are going to insert it, going to pull the yarn through. Let's count the stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now we're going to yarn over, pull through all. Now that you have the half double crochet 2 together, you're pro at it, why don't we try the double crochet 2 together, and let's practice on this next stitch. So we're going to yarn over, work it into the stitch, then we're going to draw it through, and we're actually going to work through 2 of these loops right here. Now we're going to yarn over, and we're going over to the next stitch. We're going to insert, then we're going to yarn over, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're going to yarn over, and we're going to work over 2 more. So at the end we have 1, 2, 3, and we're going to draw the yarn through those 3 loops. So let's try that again. Here's the next stitch that we're going to work into right here, the next crochet. So we're going to yarn over, insert it into the next stitch, pull it through. We have 1, 2, 3. We're going to yarn over, work through 2. Now we have 2 stitches, yarn over. Now we're going to go into the next stitch, insert it, yarn over. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to yarn over, work through 2. We're going to end up with 1, 2, 3 loops, yarn over, and work through all 3. So check your pattern, see at what point do you work your 2 half crochet togethers and your double crochet 2 togethers. And we're going to work our way around the toe. We're going to work our way down here, and I'll meet you when we're going to work the transition. I'm going to work a decrease, 2 single crochets together by inserting into the stitch. Then I'm going to pull the yarn through. I'm going to insert the hook into the next stitch, pull the yarn through, and now I have 1, 2, 3 loops, pull them all the way through, and here I have 2 single crochets together. And this is our slip stitch. This is our slip stitch. This is my chain 1, and then this is the first stitch of that row. So I'm going to remove my marker, and I'm going to slip the stitch into that first stitch, pull it through, making a slip stitch. Here we go. I am going to work a single crochet in the same stitch where I joined the last round, and also where I chained 1 for my round 6. So I'm going to do a single crochet. You check your pattern to see what stitch you're going to work here. I wanted you to see where the transition was. All right? So we're going to work a variety of a double crochet 2 togethers and half double crochet, single crochets, because what we're doing, as you can see, we're shaping. It also is going to add a beautiful design element, almost like a bauble. And this is where we start pulling in on the heel with our decreases. So this is really worth practicing, worth learning. It's not that hard. You can follow the pattern directions, and we're going to get this done. We're on row 6, kids. We're almost there. All right, I'll get back with you when we come back to the end of this row, because you already know the basics. See you in a little bit. we'll take a little break here so I can mention count your stitches, because the pattern will tell you how many stitches you should have at the end of the row. And if you do make a mistake, instead of ripping out, you know what, you can use now your decreases. You know how to do them. Instead of having to redo your work, especially in crochet, it's not going to show. Crochet, that's the beauty of it. It's lumpy, it's bumpy, and you can hide a multitude of boo-boos. So it's worth learning how to do your decreases, your half double crochet 2 together, your double crochet 2 together, and your single crochet 2 together. So for our next round, for round 6, for my size, I'm going to chain once, and then I'm going to work in the same stitch. And this is my first stitch from this round, round 6. So I'm going to remove my marker, and I'm going to do a slip stitch. I'm going to put it into the hook into that stitch. I'm going to yarn over, pull it through, pull it all the way through. And there we have it, the end of row 6. And you can see the shaping, even more shaping. Look at that, isn't that pretty? And we have the low sides, we have the nice roomy toes, and we have the heel just starting to shape up very nice. It's going to hug the back of your heel. We're ready for round 7. You know what that means? We're almost done. We're almost finished. Here we go. Now, my size, I'm going to chain 1, the beginning of round 7. So I'm going to chain 1. Here is the stitch I'm going to work into. It's the same stitch that I worked the slip stitch, and it's also the first stitch of the round. And in my pattern, I'm going to work a half double crochet. And here we go back into that one little, seems like an overworked stitch, right? Here's a half double crochet. And now you're going to follow your size, your pattern, and we're going to do some more shaping in the heel and some more shaping in the toe. And you know what that means? More decreases. All right, I'll see you for the transition of the join. We're almost done, kids. Hang in there. And then this is the first stitch that I worked on round 7. And the reason I'm emphasizing this transition is you may be used to joining on the top of a chain, especially when we chain 2 or we chain 3, we work at the top of that chain, and this is not that case. What we're working on is into the first stitch of the last row, and that is why I keep emphasizing this transition. And so I'm going to remove my marker, going to insert into my first stitch, and now I'm going to pull the yarn through that stitch, and here we are. This is the end of row 7. One more row. All right, kids, row 8, this is it. Now for my size, I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to chain 1, and then guess what? We're going to make the simplest of all stitches, and I bet you never thought about a slip stitch as a stitch. And what it ends up doing is giving you a nice sturdy edge, so it won't be flopping all over the place. And nothing worse than floppy stitches. And with this slip stitch, we're going to do the same. We're going to work into the same stitch right here, the same stitch that we joined our last row. So let's insert the hook, pull the yarn through, then we pull it through again. Here we go. That's all we're going to do, kiddo. And now I'm going to work into the first slip stitch. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to change to a smaller hook because I want the last stitches to be a little bit firmer. So I'm going to slip it in, insert it, pull the yarn, then I'm going to pull it into this stitch, and then I'm going to pull it out a little bit. I'm going to snip it. I'm going to work it with a needle. So it's always fun trying to get that yarn in there, but somehow I ended up with a really, really nice big needle. I think I got it with my Amigurumi kit. There you go. Alright, so if you can see, I'm going to close it up, and then I'm going to basically work a mock crochet. Here you go, mock crochet stitch, and then I'm going to go back into the middle of this, and I'm also going to catch some of the stitches in the back. See these in the back? I'm going to go ahead and catch those. Pull it through, and here you go. See how nice that looks? Makes a nice chain effect. You can pull it a little tighter if you want. And then all you have to do is weave this in. Turn it inside out, and this, if you see anything that you end up with what you think is a bigger hole than you'd like, you can use this yarn and you can weave it in to tighten it up. And if you see anything else you're not crazy about, you can always just tighten it up with a piece of yarn. But there you have it. It's 8 rounds. Just 8 rounds. And now that you understand the single crochet 2 together and the double crochet 2 together and the half double crochet 2 together, you know that that's what gives you that beautiful shape, that gives you that snug heel. And also you can, if you make a mistake and you end up with 1 or 2 too many stitches, you can use the decreases instead of undoing your work. It's going to save you a lot of time. These are great. You can adorn them any way you want to. Here's a big flower, or if you like, you can add some smaller flowers. These are some little rosebuds that I made. Little rosebuds. You can make tulle bows. You can adorn it any way you want to. These are just some ideas. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you make a pair, which I certainly hope you do, please post a picture of your work on my Facebook page, Yarnbite. You can find me on Facebook, and I'd love to see your work. I'd love to share it with all of the other participants who are going to view or have viewed this video, this tutorial. Also, if you have any questions, you can email me. I will post all of my email addresses under notes. And thank you so much for your time. And I hope you enjoy your Oma house slippers.